Hey, I'm John Mauriello. I'm an industrial designer and adjunct professor at California College of the Arts. Today, we're going to talk about how the physical objects in our lives are a reflection of our culture. Two great examples of this are the Google Pixel 4 and the iPhone 11 Pro. Now, these objects do this in two ways, specifically with their cameras. Number one, cameras are probably the most important feature on a smartphone, and that is a direct result of our social media and sharing culture. And number two, there's a lot of visual noise out there. And just to cut through that noise, people are making increasingly bold and inflammatory statements in order to get noticed. It's all about the spectacle and shock value these days. The same holds true for physical products in our lives. The iPhone 11 Pro and Google Pixel 4 have made strong visual statements around their cameras specifically. Apple has completely doubled down on their cameras. They're investing heavily in the best hardware and software to make them the best in class. A significant portion of their marketing and communications are centered entirely around camera features. And the industrial designers at Apple have decided to emphasize this in the actual physical design as well. The result is a design that's actually pretty jarring and very bold. There's a texture change in the camera area, and there's also these big silver bezels around the rim of each lens to bring more attention to this area. The way the lenses are arranged is a bit odd as well. It might be functional, but with Apple's budget, I'm sure they could have figured something else out if they really wanted to. This leads me to believe that these design choices were conscious and intentional. So here's what's interesting. You have three circles, which form a triangle, all set inside of a square. So that's three geometric shapes that don't create any sort of visual harmony. And it's also the area of highest contrast on the entire phone. You have this major surface texture change, and it's just an area that commands a lot of visual attention. It's all about making that big, bold statement about the thing that people care about most, which in this case is social media and sharing, all done through the camera. What's interesting is that I'm pretty sure that the camera lenses are these little tiny dots right here. But Apple put these bigger silver bezels out here, which make the lenses look bigger than they actually are. They probably register as more powerful to you as a potential customer on a subconscious level. Apple wanted a camera that was visually distinctive and recognizable from several feet away because their premium phones are a status symbol as much as they are a phone. The three giant lenses are the most obvious way of saying, yeah, I have the new iPhone and you don't. And you can see that I have the new iPhone from 20 feet away. To be fair, there are probably major hardware constraints to these phones, and the engineers probably had to add extra thickness in this area to fit all of the hardware components inside. But there are a million ways that they could have hidden this thickness or taken attention away from the camera. In fact, past iPhone models used to do this. Google has adopted a similar strategy by visually blocking out the camera and using a different color to create contrast. They're a little more understated about it by not bringing visual attention to each individual lens, because Google's design language seems to be all about feeling more human. And it's kind of interesting because if you look at the Google Pixel's camera configuration, it does kind of look like it has a little face. You have the two eyes and then the mouth. Now, I could be wrong, maybe this was by accident, but knowing how much time and attention to detail there is on the design of these phones, I would say that it was probably on purpose, and they probably wanted to add that little tiny subconscious human element. They probably want the Pixel to feel a little bit more approachable in the colors, shapes, and textures, and they brought attention to the camera in the way that is still in line with their design philosophy. I think that both approaches are totally valid. It's just a matter of how you want to position your company in the market. There are other reasons why there's such a strong emphasis on the camera these days too. Most smartphones are covered by a case, for example. So it's not even a guarantee that customers or other people will be able to see all of the surface finishes, transitions, and details. The one area that cannot be covered by a case is the camera. Otherwise, of course, the camera wouldn't function. Another reason is that the smartphone market is ripe for innovation. Apple changed the game in 2007 with the iPhone. They definitely weren't the first to make a smartphone, but they were the first to change the paradigm in a really revolutionary way. Since the original Apple iPhone launch, the form factor of smartphones really hasn't changed very much in over a decade. It's kind of set in stone. It's all about screen real estate and thinness. That doesn't leave a lot of room for industrial design. We're stuck with these skinny metal and glass rectangles, And there are some folding screen phones out there already, and innovation will happen in this space eventually. But until we find a new form factor that addresses an actual user need, smartphones are probably going to keep this standard sort of thin rectangle shape for a while. Right now, industrial designers have this really difficult task of making a very standardized and refined shape recognizable and usable. And the camera is one of the few areas where designers can create a strong visual signature. So going back here, a significant amount of time is spent just on photo quality during every product launch. Look at how much website real estate is dedicated to just the camera and its features. If you go to the Apple website and check out the iPhone 11 Pro, nearly 1/3 of the long scrolling page is just dedicated to camera features. Google Pixel dedicates almost half of its website real estate just to the camera and all of its features. What's even more interesting is that the number of lenses are increasing. It's getting to the point of caricature, almost like how people were making fun of the triple blade razors in the 1990s. Saturday Night Live even had a skit on it at one point. I would include a clip of it, but I don't want YouTube to take down my video for copyright infringement. Triple blade razors were once thought of as an unnecessary gimmick. Meanwhile, here we are in 2020, where now you can get 5-bladed razors. And without a paradigm shift or meaningful innovation, companies have to resort to adding on these excessive features. And that's where we are with smartphones, at least in my opinion. YouTubers and tech reviewers are talking about these incremental differences in photo quality or the chin and the notch on the screens, rather than big sweeping differences because they don't exist. So once again, the objects in our lives are a reflection of our culture. These smartphone cameras command a lot of visual attention, and that's because the designers know that the camera is a very, very important feature to many users.